We got to keep our eye out for some trade targets for the Miami Heat because Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald wrote an article labeling some guys that Heat fans and the Heat organization could have their eyes on during the season if they get made available before the NBA trade deadline. And we know Miami is always scouring the market to potentially upgrade this team. Now, there are going to be some players talked about on today's show that we should keep our eye on. But make sure you do like that video because the season's just about to start and I want to get the good vibes out there early. If you want the Heat to make the playoffs in this upcoming season, hit that thumbs up icon. Don't jinx it. I know if you don't like it, so hit that like button. All right, here is what Barry Jackson said when talking about the trade market for Miami. The Heat has only made two big trades this decade, being Kyle Lowry in the offseason in a sign-in trade and Terry Rozier last trade deadline. But Miami, recognizing Boston's greatness, remains willing to do something significant if an enticing opportunity becomes available. And now we have seen Miami go after some players in the past like Donovan Mitchell, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard over the last 3 or 4 seasons, specifically the offseason, but nothing has materialized for Miami. And it's frustrated a lot of us fans, me included. I'm very upset at the fact that they have swung and missed on a lot of guys out there that have switched teams that the Heat were linked to. But they are still going to look to upgrade this team. And if the Heat play well enough in the regular season before the trade deadline and some good players get made available before that deadline in early February, I could see Pat Riley looking to strike while the iron's hot at the tail end of the Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo era, as there's only probably 2 seasons at maximum of those two playing well together. So who could the Heat be interested in if they become available? Well, one of the names that Barry Jackson mentioned was Kevin Durant, the Phoenix Suns star, because the Suns struggled last year. They were first-round exits, barely made the playoffs, and if that happens again and they are not a good regular season team, there is a possibility where Phoenix looks to reshape their roster or KD asks out because we know he is very well open to doing that. Durant's still one of the best players in the NBA. There's no doubt about that. He can score the basketball with the best of them. And since returning from that Achilles injury, he has not shown any signs of slowing down, efficient from beyond the arc, efficient inside the arc, scoring at a high level. I don't know if KD can be a number 1 on a championship team, but it's hard to deny a Kevin Durant, Bam Adebayo, and Jimmy Butler big three is one of the best teams in the NBA, specifically Eastern Conference, battling it with the New York Knicks, 76ers, and the Boston Celtics. But if we're going to be honest here, this one isn't very practical. One, I don't see Phoenix blowing it up. They're in a win-now mode too, and they would have to really stink. Injuries, the D-Book, Beal, and the rest of the crew for KD to ask out or them even thinking about trading Durant. And also, they're in the second apron of the luxury tax, which means it's very difficult to facilitate a trade with the Phoenix Suns. And it would likely have to be a one-for-one swap of Jimmy Butler and for Kevin Durant. And I don't think that's very beneficial for Miami, right? Like, why would they trade Jimmy to get KD? Is a team with Kevin Durant over Jimmy Butler raising the ceiling that much? I don't know. Is KD the better player? Probably. But is he going to be the needle mover that just a KD and Bam duo wins a championship? Probably not. The idea would bring them all together as a trio, and I don't really know if they'd be able to do that due to the contract and apron restrictions. We still got some more trade targets to talk about here, but let me know who your number 1 trade target is for the Miami Heat leading up to that NBA trade deadline. It's today's pinned comment, so if you get hit with a YouTube ad break, let it play and answer today's question. All right, number 2 is a little bit of a surprising one. It's Julius Randle from the New York Knicks. Jackson mentioned him amongst some other guys here. He really named 4 players, and Julius Randle was number 2, which is intriguing to me because he is entering the final year of his deal. He is going to be a free agent in 2025, and I do see a way and an avenue where the Knicks end up dealing Julius Randle. He's been a revelation for them ever since he joined them back a few years ago. He helped lead them to the playoffs early in the 2020-21 season. He's been an All-NBA, an All-Star player, and I don't know where he fits in this Knicks roster, though. Even though the raw numbers are fantastic, when you think of what they have on their roster, they have Jalen Brunson, they have Mikal Bridges now, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson. And my question is, who starts for that team? Because you have Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby, who you think is all going to start, right? But then do they move Dante DiVincenzo to the bench? Because he was really good as the starting 2 guard last year. Does that make Josh Hart and DiVincenzo come off the bench and you run a bigger lineup of Mikal Bridges at the 2, OG at the 3, Randle at the 4, and Mitch Rob at the 5. Maybe they start Julius Randle at the center spot because Mitchell Robinson's going to be out for the beginning of the season. There's a lot of moving parts for the Knicks and how they can use their players, but with Randle being a free agent in 2025, it could benefit New York to get rid of him, as he might not be the best fit on the Knicks team due to their ball sharing and it running through Brunson, and Randle's better with the ball in his hands. And I don't know if they would want him to stick around, and actually might hurt them as a team. But I also think it would hurt Miami. I don't think Julius Randle is that good of a fit in the 305. Would he be a perfect slotted starting 4 next to Jimmy and Bam? On paper, sure. But when you think of Randle's play style, when you think of his mental fortitude, is he a Heat culture guy? Would he be able to work with Jimmy, with Bam, and work off ball? Because Jimmy and Bam like to have the ball in their hands at times. And maybe Julius Randle would be the guy in the regular season that takes more of that scoring leap and allows Jimmy to coast in the regular season. Maybe it would work. But I'm skeptical of Randle's fit in Miami, and for that reason, and you combine that with the fact that he's going to be a free agent next year and you'd have to pay him, I am probably staying away from a Julius Randle trade, and I don't really want to give the Knicks assets that it would require to get Julius Randle. 2 more trade targets to talk about, but Factor is back in sponsoring the Heat Report, and I could not be more excited. Y'all, if you're real ones from last season, y'all know how much I love Factor. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time with chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose on from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. My favorite is the loaded bacon shredded chicken. It is to die for. I'm being serious. Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. It is the absolute best. Head to factormeals.com/chatsports50 and use code chatsports50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code chatsports50 at factormeals.com/chatsports50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. I appreciate Factor Meals for coming back because I use them all the time. Let's get started today, folks. All right, next up here is Kyle Kuzma, who we've talked about a lot at the channel as a member of the Washington Wizards, who I think would benefit this Miami Heat basketball team. He could fit perfectly into that starting 4, and I don't think it would cost Nikola Jovic to get him, but I will say this. He is a better version of what Nikola Jovic could become in terms of his rebounding, in terms of his size, his defensive versatility. Jovic is a better three-point shooter, yes, but Kuzma is better offensively at every part of the game and a better rebounder. You see the numbers on screen. Jovic only averaged 4 rebounds last season, and Kuzma, at least right now, is a better defender. And he would be relatively cheap to acquire and cheap to have on the books, which is something that you always like when you think about having to pay Jimmy Butler this upcoming offseason if you want to. And it's interesting to say this as well. Kyle Kuzma, over the past 2-3 weeks, has expressed publicly an admiration for Pat Riley and the Miami Heat organization. It feels like he's flirting with the Heat, almost saying, come get me if I'm available. And I think it would be an easy trade for the Miami Heat because Kuzma's only making $22 million for this season. Then it's going to be 21 next year. And then it's 19 then the year after that. It's a descending contract, which makes it, one, very enticing for Miami to acquire because he's cheap and a productive player. But when you think of that contract and the way they can match salary because they can't really get more money coming in than they're sending out, well, guess what? A Duncan Robinson $19 million contract, Josh Richardson $3 million contract equals the Kyle Kuzma deal. So you can attach Duncan and you attach Josh Richardson plus draft picks. You only have one available to trade in 2030 or 2031, and you attach one of those to them. And guess what? You can really potentially get Kyle Kuzma on this roster and create a really balanced scoring attack and deep lineup. I think it would be an easy trade, and one that if Miami wants to make an addition to this roster but doesn't want to go crazy for a All-NBA All-Star guy, Kyle Kuzma could be that dude. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because the season is just around the corner and we will have you covered with everything you need. The goal is 14K before the season tips off on October 23rd against the Orlando Magic. Can we get there for Tyler Hero? We got 10 subs yesterday. Let's beat that. We are under 300 away from that 14K number. Let's get there ASAP. All right, the last trade target we're going to talk about today to keep our eye on is Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. And this one should come as no surprise because he's one of the more likely trade candidates if we're talking right now, since him and New Orleans have yet to get a contract done. Ingram is one of the best scorers in the NBA. I don't really want to talk about Ingram that much on today's show. We've done it in the past about how he would fit in Miami, how he wouldn't fit for the Heat. But I am curious to see what he gets dealt for if he does get traded, because the contract demands are something else. And we've talked about this in the past as well, where he wants, at least allegedly, 4 years and $50 million per season, a $200 million contract. And I like Brandon Ingram. I do, but I don't think he's a top 2 player on a championship contending team. And I'm not paying someone $50+ million if I don't think they could lead a team as a top 2 option. For that reason, I'm kind of out on Brandon Ingram. Now, if it was really cheap to acquire him at the deadline and you were really only making that deal to get the final 2 or 3 months of the 24-25 season, and then maybe take a look if you want to keep him long-term and let Jimmy Butler walk, sure. But I am not spending premium assets that Miami has to acquire Brandon Ingram because I don't know if it'll be worth it to pay him long-term, and I don't even know if he will stay in Miami long-term if you traded for him this season due to wanting that big contract in NBA free agency. Barry Jackson didn't mention Kawhi Leonard, but I do want to mention him. I'd keep an eye out for Kawhi. He did have a procedure this offseason on his knee. He'll likely be ready for the regular season. But the Clippers are a team that I think could be really bad this year and actually miss the postseason after losing Paul George. They brought James Harden back, but can a Kawhi and James Harden duo with their supporting cast really net a good record in the Western Conference that's getting more loaded year after year? I'm not so sure. So if the Clippers struggle in the first half of the season and Kawhi is at least healthy, I could see the Clippers trying to get the assets back for Kawhi before losing him for nothing or having his trade value just go right into the gutter due to his injury history and age. So Kawhi Leonard could be a sneaky player that becomes available at the deadline, and if he is, I think Miami should give it a call. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you are following me over on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff because Media Day is on Monday, and I'll have highlights, I'll have clips, I'll have quotes over on my Twitter and on the YouTube streets. But if you want to see them first, my Twitter is the best place to do it, at Nic_Rohloff. I'll see you tomorrow with another video. As always, go Heat.